everyone. Welcome to 12 Step Crasher Freestyle Sundays, recorded on the Thursday number. I don't know because I'm ADHD. My name's Ev, and my co host Eric is with me tonight.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know what
Maybe
number
10?
it is.
Maybe, I don't know.
I don't know. Anyways, who cares?
How are you doing, my friend?
Better now than I was all day at work.
What happened?
Well, you know that well. I texted you at one point and I said, because usually, okay, so I may as well set this up. It felt like I don't know. To start off, I was up before my alarm. I was really tired and, with the Seroquel and everything, just not waking up out of the Seroquel fog. But I'm up 25 minutes before my alarm is like, fuck it. I'll stay up, start getting ready. And I'm having a hell of a time getting going and getting awake. And I do my routine and everything and maybe a bit extra coffee. Go to work. And it kind of creeped in slowly, but I was disassociating right away at work, right? Where I'm just working like a robot, but it's like I'm not engaging really with anybody. I'm not really talking with anybody, just back and forth for like, I'll grab that or no, that's no good. And that's it, right? And as the day went on, usually that goes away after my first break and I eat a bit more. And it didn't go away. And it didn't go away at noon either. So then even at afternoon, I was like, wow, now I was realizing it. Like I'm really realizing it. And I was like, I wasn't like, I wasn't, it was almost hard for me to pull out of it when I was actually in my spot working. If I moved away from my spot, that was okay. It was like I'm away from my spot. But in my spot and on my line, I was disassociating so bad. Wasn't like 100% on the ball either, cognitively, because I wasn't actively paying attention to some things just around my area myself. Yeah, it was just a weird day. I disassociated all day, and even like home, I'm not too bad. It's the same thing though. I came home and wasn't necessarily disassociating, but I went through my routine very quickly just today coming home, and that was probably part of it. I was just like in robot mode. Very weird day. I don't get them very often, but today was like a very, I don't know, strange. I don't know what it was. I can't put my finger on it. It's not bad. It wasn't great, but it's not bad either. It's just like, certainly not a social battery day. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But I'm curious, because you keep repeating that you have mixed feelings about being at that place to begin with. Do you think that perhaps it's your brain trying to escape the environment? Like we
Oh
don't
yeah,
need substance as addict to escape whatever's happening. Dissociating is a perfect way to get out of a situation while physically being present in it. I know that because I believe I've spent week dissociated, like in an entire week, like many times without even realizing it. One of the critique that the people closest to me, and you can imagine who that is, kept repeating is that I was not present in the room. And only now do I start to understand the extent of which that is true. Like I can go so deep inside my mind that I don't really care about what's happening around me. And that was a coping mechanism that came because you cannot be using 24/7 all the time, right? But you still got to find a way to escape those emotions when you're not using. So dissociating was a perfect one. Well, perfect. Not sure that's the right word, but you know what I
yeah.
mean. The trick.
Well, I think you said perfect. Is that what you meant?
Not exactly. That's why I had a second thought on the choice of word, but I'll roll with it. It was a
Roll with it.
perfect way to fuck up my life, just like drugs did, without any substances. Perfect in
Right.
that.
That sounds about right. Yeah. Well, I know what you mean. Obviously, I do it all the time. It's funny to be so aware of it, like I was today. Like I literally was telling myself, "Oh man, you're really disassociated." It's like it was my favorite word today because I must have repeated it to myself. I don't know how many times. It was like, "Wow, you're really disassociating, and you don't give a fuck, do you?" No, I don't give a fuck. It's like you're having this internal dialogue with yourself.
No, I don't give a.
Yeah, and you're right. All right. So why is it happening? Well, because I'm working at a place where I have this conflict of interest, not interest, but conflict with goals and what's happened before and what is going on presently. And it seems like my brain is deciding to check out now a lot of times when I'm there. You know, well, it's like I'm doing my work, but it's like here, you only get this, Eric. I give you this one. He can do the work, but don't expect too much interest from him or anything else. He's not too concerned about anything that you guys do right now.
That happens to anybody. Like, but the way you describe it, and I think it bothered you. Remind me of something that, well, I haven't really looked back onto since my 20s, but when I first dropped out of school and thought it was cool, making wrong decisions after one another, I was working in like random labor. But I realized that after some time it becomes so automated that my mind keeps running and I'm doing other things. I'm processing a lot of things, or I need to listen to radio or podcast, or to have an opinion, to debate with myself, because that's so not stimulating intellectually to be wrapping boxes, or even operating a saw can be extremely automated and boring, unless you get an accident. Get pretty intense. But anyways, all that to say that I kind of figured out that I was a knowledge worker when I was operating CNC machine that cut stuff while reading the newspaper or doing a lot of other activities that could have been a job. Like, I was intellectually involved in something else than something that actually required my undivided attention, and I was nailing it. So this duality of doing something dumb that kind of feels understimulating and needing to fill the space with something else was extremely tiring as well. At the end of a 8-hour shift of doing whatever on top of my job, and at the time there was no cell phones, but I guess, you said another thing that really struck me was that when you were younger, you had like the urge to say what you had to say and not really engage in a conversation, but just let it out
Well, I
and
didn't.
need
I
an
didn't
outlet.
care.
Yeah. That is extremely neurodivergent. Like, it is like trending very high on neurodivergence.
Go figure.
What's interesting is that in sobriety, or perhaps in age more than sobriety, you
I
get to
think
a
so.
point where you don't feel that urge to communicate whatever is on your mind, because you have the understanding that people are either not caring or not interested, and it's not because they're bad people, it's because you don't share that interest with you. They don't want to know how penguins reproduce in South Africa. They
Why
don't care about
not?
that.
Well, some people are just crazy.
Yeah, some
I was
people
waiting
are
for you
just
to fill
crazy.
me in because I know nothing about how penguins mate and where.
It's just an example about things that
Okay.
are niche and interest you.
Like buttered sausage.
Yes, that's a
Okay,
great
get
example.
to that later. It's still in my head.
So that
Uh,
that that way that you think is unique, and I'm a bit the same. Like, I used to say much more than I should, and often regret opening my mouth just to express my opinions about things that I could keep it to myself. Either because it's hurtful or just because it is not a popular opinion. And I'm okay with that. I don't need my opinion to be popular. But when I was younger, I guess I needed validation from everyone at all time in every situation. That eventually has evolved in a very, very centered codependency, where I was seeking for all of my validation. That I'm getting older too, slowly. Not yet 40, but I'm turning 39 this year. So I guess that has to do with sobriety for sure. But I much less crave validation. I don't need people to agree with me. I don't need people to support my opinions or the things that I choose to do as much as I did before. I'm not I'm not 100% there where I don't care about what other people think. I guess you're not 100% either, but you are a good model for me in that sense.
Geez, I don't know. I'm not. I'm not there yet either. I really
I
not.
know.
Actually, I think I didn't while I was still using it and everything, and when I wasn't out of control yet, before my big downward spiral. I think I didn't give a shit about anything anybody said then. Now it's different. Now it's different, I think, because I overanalyze or look in some ways kind of the AA thing. What's your part in this?
Well, yeah. Well, that the difference is, I guess, is now that not that you don't care for what other people think, but you're gonna do your thing anyway. Like, rather it be your tattoos or where you go for the weekend or where you choose to go at a meeting or not. Like you
Even at work.
being a mentor comes with being a role model. So keep that in mind.
Wow. What year should I start them on when I mentored them? Like what part of it? You mean now, or should I mentor them on how I was as a younger man? Because they
I don't know.
at the age they are, they should be like me when I was younger and question everything. Now I could march down the line and do their job too, and what does that give me?
Well,
This is
that's
how
the
I
point.
used to be. I used to finish all that stuff. I
You,
literally, with the help of a few people around me, could do all those parts of the job faster than them.
and I've done that all my life, right? Just go above and beyond, and oh, well, they're going to be so proud of me. I'm going to do much more than my pay grade.
Never
In
happened,
a
eh?
way, when I was younger, it helped me. Like it helped me in my career to get promotions over promotions over promotions. But now, and especially during my active addiction, I burnt myself out without a purpose, without a reason. Just because I felt like I always had to do more. And the disease of more for me is really a productivity issue, and it has a lot to do with work. So it's really reassuring for me to hear you talk about how you set boundaries in the things that you choose to do or not to do once your job is done. They would have a hard time questioning why you're taking a break and smoking a cigarette because, well, you have to wait for the people to catch up on you.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
like you're a fuck up and the line is waiting on you. Proud of you.
yeah. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter.
Slowly but surely, you're becoming a decent human being.
Well, it's more to protect myself and my sobriety than anything else,
There's
right?
one thing as well that your little story or share about your work made me thought of is that, in a sense, I believe you are being of service in that framework as well. You look after the best interest of these newcomers at work as you would for newcomers in sobriety. You also balance the interest of your superiors because, well, the line is running as it should be running. Actively, you don't need them to tell you because you know what
Yeah,
should be done.
yes, I do. But yes, and to the point is, I've always been that way. This is where I had problems on other jobs. Is I take on the burden of the employees around me. This won't surprise you. I'm always the one voicing the concerns of everybody,
Yes.
right?
Now,
So I'm always
please,
singled out,
please, I'm trying to corner you. Please let me.
just like work.
So, for the analogy of you being of service for newcomers and understanding the big book of work, I'm gonna
Oof, where's
caution
this
you
going?
not to actually be an asshole old timer almighty. You're not above your own job. You know what I mean?
What do you mean? Spell it out.
I'm very critical of a certain type of old timers in AA. We both are. We don't have to reiterate. People that listen to the podcast have that pretty clear.
I'm pretty sure.
But that critique and what you are, the way you're talking about work and your place in work sounds a bit, and that also is not a broken record, but it's you repeat that a lot, right? With pride. And I'm not calling you out. I'm just saying you're comfortable in that position. Like an old timer is comfortable repeating his old mantras over and over again.
What I like to point out to the newcomers once they've been hired for real after they're past their trial period, and then they're in that pink cloud. They're in a pink cloud at
The
work.
people that have been able to work for 30 days straight without getting fired.
Well, no more than that. It's months, right? Before
Yeah,
they're
90 days?
actually. Oh, and more than
Three
that.
months?
It's at least 3 to 6 months to the hiring
Shit, you gotta
process.
be really sober to get hired.
Yeah, and but you were moving on to service, so you may as well head there. I could feel it. You
Well,
started to
yeah.
talk about now.
Yeah,
I don't consider it service. I never did look at it that way. I consider it solidarity, different, a little different. I believe in solidarity of the workers now, like you just said. So if you're not constantly bugging them about something, it's not going to get done. And you have that. I got fired from another place because I kept going.
yeah. Um. Anyways, some people are awful, and
Yes,
sometimes it's a blessing to be let go. But I'd like to say that solidarity, definitely a good word. Probably gonna keep that for a topic someday. Because yeah, service kind of imply a job or a superiority report. As to solidarity is really commonality. You know, we are all one and
yes,
the same. I'm not better than you. I'm just there to support you in the same capacity that you support me. And
exactly.
that's a very different way to approach interconnection than the word service. And service kind of also imply like a duty to pay back,
Yes,
as opposed to solidarity means just being genuinely a good person that care for others. And that consequently people care for that person as well because they recognize that they deserve it. You know, solidarity, I think, is a word that I'm going to use more, referring to the support between addicts and addicts helping another.
true.
But I want to say that it is
That's good.
perhaps. Have you done your hierarchy of values recently? I think solidarity is a solid one.
I well, obviously, no, I haven't. I hated doing the hierarchy of
I know.
values.
That's why I mentioned it.
Man, did that give me headaches, man. Well, I don't get headaches, but I mean, you know what I mean. It caused me all kinds of like indecision and uncertainty and all kinds of other things, questioning and this and that. It's like even responsibility. Because you remember Wendy's list, right? She had like a long list of stuff that you could choose from these in case you couldn't come up with your own idea. You could choose from these ideas. And it was out there about my second one, I think, that she was like, she like circled two things. She goes, "Why didn't you choose either of these?" Because she knew my story, right? And everything. And I go, responsibility. I said, I didn't think about why would you say responsibility? And she goes, when she laid it all out to me, and you stayed in this marriage, even though you said you for the longest time, you there was no love between you and this woman, and but you loved the kids. You had fallen in love with the two stepkids, this and that, and you stayed longer than you wanted to at the end, even though they had left and moved on. And she talked about other things too, and I was like, I said, well, I thought. This is where she got me. I said, "Well, I just felt that was a given," and she corrected me on that. She was like, "No, it's never a given. That's a choice. You chose to be responsible."
Yeah, there's a fucking huge lot of deadbeat dads, like not everybody show up and do what they have to do as a dad or as a stepdad. You're definitely different. And that's a value that is less common than we may think. But I also,
Yeah,
for
see, I have a
myself,
hard time with other people that don't. Right? It's me. It's like, what word did I use instead of responsibility? Given. It's a given. Like
yeah, well,
that's what I'm supposed to do, or that
that's
is how I am. I can't do any different. That's probably a better way to say it.
the word that comes to mind for me is perhaps generational trauma. If your parents were not showing up for you or in any other way, there was a lack of connection, perhaps that you're more inclined, more prone to do that yourself and think that it's okay not to have a strong emotional bond with your kids, right? If I cannot say that. I cannot say that because we both lived it and it's not true. Addiction doesn't do that.
Yeah, no, shit. When I was playing, we'd have these 4-hour Monopoly games, with my two stepkids when they were like 17 and 15, right? And even my daughter, the youngest, we'd let her stay up too. We'd play Monopoly, and I'm plowing back the beers, right? I'm just happy as a pig in shit, right? I'm having a great time because now they're old enough. Now they're old enough to do things that we all could do together, right? And have fun. Not everybody's throwing a fit because they're too young. They can't count. They don't understand the game. Whatever. So they soon learned that it's not good playing against dad because dad buys the first street and gets all the hotels on the first street and makes you bankrupt really fast. even if it takes 4 hours. But that being said, I'm drinking, plowing drinks with them. We're having a great time. I'm going to the bathroom maybe 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to do my lines and then coming back and I'm awake again. My 17-year-old for sure knew, and holy shit, it was weird, our dynamic, because mom was over on the computer and not paying attention to us, and the rest of us are having a grand old time because it's the weekend. I'm not at work. I don't have to be at work. I can drink free without guilt because I'm having fun with my kids. It sounds weird, right?
Yes, but for sure that our addiction has tainted the quality of the time,
But yeah,
the quality
everything
of
else
care that we
suffered.
gave.
Everything else suffered, but there were moments that were bonding and where it was good. But hey, look, the daytime was no hell, right? When you're recovering from that, and there's nothing,
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bad in both, but there was definitely more bad than good.
Well, that's the point, right? It's
Yeah.
not the addiction that will make you somebody that doesn't care.
That's right.
The
That's why
addiction will make
I
you
have problems.
unable to do what you have to do.
This and not be responsible, pay the bills, go to work, all this shit. That's why I had that issue with that one person that one time in a meeting that called us out by some names that I took issue with. The definition that he chose to apply to all of us. I was like, no, you're not. Not to me. I wasn't alone. Other people called him out in that meeting too. But just to say, everybody is different, right, in addiction. And yes, some people we know are lying, cheating people, and they go off and they abandon everything. And some of us, like you and me, we stay and we suffer in our own head because we don't know how to get out of it.
And that's you nailed it. That really is not less suffering for the people around you that if you'd be gone. That is important to take in considerations, not because you're there miserable, killing yourself, but showing up. That the fact that you're showing up is not hurting everybody around you. Rather you want it or not, rather you actively engage in bad behaviors or not, the lack of connection in itself is suffering for others. That's why when I was doing couples therapy and the topic of codependency came, there's one thing there. It's that everybody that is in a relationship with an addict suffer codependency, but not all addicts suffer codependency back to those person. And that's what's fucked up. For me, at least, like I have a hard time understanding how you don't care. You just don't. And those people, when they get sober, they still don't. That was a bit shaking for me to realize that. Because as you said, for me, it's a given. Rather I'm capable of doing it, rather I do it right or not, I feel accountable for doing this at all time. One of the hardest things at Heritage for 28 days was to be away from the kids. I can manage being away from wifey, but being away from my role as a dad that I've showed up for every day, all day for the past 15 years, that was one of the most difficult things because I felt like I was letting down. Like, not that they were not taken care of, but that I was not showing up to do what I have to do. And that had in certain moments hindered quality of my recovery because I've to dealt with guilt and shame around that topic as well.
So have I.
So when I see and realize that a lot of people generally don't give a shit, it is not an addiction problem.
Yeah, that part we know. That's true. Yeah, it's beyond
Probably
that,
going to
right?
receive shit for saying that, but
Well,
I'm
look. Some people are narcissists, whether they are not an addict or they are an addict. There's some people that can't think farther than their own nose, or don't see past their own nose, I should say. No, I was more or less always aware at certain points of every day of the needs, right? Towards the end of the night when they're in bed, of course, and I only have, like you call her, wifey, and she's in the same room with me and we don't speak because she's faced to the computer and that's all she does. And like she didn't acknowledge the children while they were awake either. So, that's my time of night where I just plow back those last 7 or 8 so I can fall asleep, pass out because there's nothing here for me. just the TV now because the kids are in bed. So, you know, uh, I don't like to look back on those times because they were just so miserable in some ways and not miserable in others. You know what I mean? It's just like, how did I do it and why did I do it? In some ways, I do realize, though, I did come to the realization that I was in a severe depression at one point.
Yeah, there's no disputing that. Like, and
No,
probably
but
at
it
many
came,
occasions.
yeah, but very severe at one point. I literally followed her into the rabbit hole, and we both, you know,
Isn't that, I'm throwing it out there, that maybe absolutely not the case, but isn't that at that moment you radically stop drinking from a day to the other?
nope,
No? Okay.
no. She started through online, through bingo, because she was going to bingo like 2, 3 nights a week.
Hmm.
That was the only thing that got her out of the house was bingo. So I stayed home with the kids, right? Through a friend at bingo, she started to talk in her ear and like try and build her up. And I assume she's telling her at bingo that, oh, my husband smokes, drinks all the time, and this and that. Well, she pays no attention to anybody. And so she started to dress better and do makeup, and she started going with her friend out. So now I'm still taking care of the kids, her kids.
Not yours. Hers. Yeah, yeah.
Well, mine's there too, but her kids, right? Who
Yeah, yeah.
really need in the teenage years, some guidance because mom doesn't give them anything. And so at one point, she announces she's leaving me. And this is the funny thing. What happened there was like it went off in my head. It was like I was being saved. When I got sober, I thought she was leaving. I announced to my family that I had a problem. Katie's leaving me. So like she's leaving, right? So it's my fault. I said it's my fault. I drink every day. I got a big problem, and I stopped drinking. But in my head, I thought she was gone. She was leaving. And then when I got sober, she didn't leave right away. She got worse later because she fell out of that. She got back into her computer and that. She stopped seeing that friend. I think they fought. And while I'm sober, she went right back to where she was. Now she had no. Now I'm sober and I'm doing stuff with the kids and I'm doing everything around the house and it made no difference for me. In the end, it was still the same, right? So at this time, though, I'm sober. So
Function,
this time I left.
the dysfunction in your relationship were not necessarily entirely due to her own addiction, but removing your addiction didn't fix what was broken in the dynamic between you two, or the absence of potentially romance or whatever
Yeah,
made
yeah.
the
It's
couple
just
being miserable, right?
that's right. Exactly. But yeah, but you because you brought it up. So I the only thing I remember clearly, because like I said, I don't remember the next day and that week. Like I told you, I said I stopped drinking. I didn't do any rehab or anything. I just stopped overnight. I stopped drinking. But I do remember thinking she was leaving, and I was able to stop. It was like somewhere, I'm sure, because of the way my subconscious works, I think I thought I was free. You understand what I mean? Like someone unlocked my jail cell.
And that's speaking
And I
because,
think I was keeping myself in jail by using alcohol. Because it was the only thing
like,
keeping me in that house at some point. Because once I did get sober after a year and a half, that's when it all fell apart. I left her there with the house. And when she stopped taking care of my kid when the other two kids had left, and I had to be there every day almost, and I'm not living there to fix the suppers, make the lunches, make sure she's taking a bath. And well, then I was like, okay, well, my name's on this house. Get the fuck out.
yeah, like we often hear the cliche, addiction is the only prison that the keys are on the inside.
Yep.
And that
And
is
I
very
totally
true, right?
identify with that. Yep. What did I just explain?
Exactly, that's what it made me think about. But what you're describing also,
Was
and thank you,
self-inflicted.
like you mentioned, you don't like to go back in the past, and I'd like just to maybe point out that the reason why you went there is because I asked you about if solidarity is a core value to you, and you just says responsibility is. However, like there's a lot of you, and the person that you are today, it is just the logical output or
Yeah.
outcome
I
of your path, right?
I suppose. It's probably why some things I really stick to my guns on nowadays. It's like I won't bend. I bent too many times before. You know what I mean? I bent myself out of shape. And this last time was the downfall was I was partying too hard on the weekends, and then when my mother passed, something went off in my head, and then I couldn't sleep, and then I used it to sleep, and then I just used it all the time, and I just know I can't touch that stuff anymore because it corrupts me every fucking time. I know other people like there's like, oh, I can't drink, I'm gonna die. I don't know that I'll die right away. I know I've said that probably because of drug use with alcohol, but I mean, I probably would last another 10 years even. I mean, who knows? But no, I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be corrupted by that shit anymore. I don't like the decisions or the decisions I don't make because of it would be more to the point.
Yeah. The indecisive.
The inability to make decisions or to move forward with anything.
Yes. Because again, the prison that you have the keys in the inside, but you don't know how to use them, it is what it is. Like literally, like it prevents you from moving on, prevents you from realizing that you're not where you should be.
Yeah, and that ties into my job now.
Yes.
There's a lot of disassociating going on because I think my brain thinks that too, except I'm strong enough in my sobriety not to come home and worry about it. I come home, I forget my job until you brought it. Tonight we're talking about it, but I literally don't when I'm home.
Because instead of being in shame and dwelling on it on your own and try to hide or feeling guilty for feeling that way, you reach out and you tell a friend.
Yeah, I texted you and go, I am dissociating so bad I don't give a shit today.
And I just asked you 2 questions, but I know you were laughing, right? Because I know this is what you needed. Not
Yeah,
complicated,
I just
but
needed
just
you to
instant react, right?
Yeah. It's true. So, but see, at least I used it where I didn't use it last time for the intrusive thoughts. I texted you this time.
I'm proud of you, man. Really proud.
Yeah, well, I didn't want to make that mistake again either. It's just so easy because you were online. I could see. Well, at least I think you were online. I'd seen that you had been active really recent. So I was like, oh, he's there. And I'm outside and having a cigarette when I'm not supposed to be. I'll make good use of my time. I'll try and get out of my head.
So because your coping mechanism are much more LT than they used to be, but you remain the same person. Like the needs we were trying to address in the maladaptive behavior, maladaptive relationship that kept us miserable in codependency, but that we wouldn't go away because I'm going to quote you, it's a given that I have to be there for those kids and that I have to endure that relationship that has been dead for time and that we both suffer from. And I'm going to make it miserable for myself. And of course, everybody's going to suffer from my addiction, as everybody suffered from.
Which is not our intention, but it's just how it is.
That's the outcome. And I guess I don't know what her motive was, but escaping the computer served a purpose. Like there's a rational to that. Like maybe she felt like she was a burden or annoying to the kids. I don't know. Right?
Yeah, I'm not going to go into it. It's
too
long. Let's move on.
I'm not going to speculate on that. But you know what I mean? Like we all have reasons for the thing that we do.
Yeah, well, and I just want to come back to what you had finished saying. I think that's why we get along so good because I think we both see a lot of each other in each other. That we see some of the same traits, even qualities sometimes, right? So it's why we are able to connect on a wavelength where we understand each other sometimes. Because a lot of times we see it from the same perspective.
Yes, well, and I gotta say that now that you're mentioning it, like most of the time, like I'd say 95% of the time, if I'm calling you out of being critical, first of all, it's with kindness, but that's something that applies to me as well, right? I'm talking just as much to myself as I'm talking to you, because when I hear you talk, that's my bullshit. You stole my bullshit.
I got there first.
You paved the way. All right, cool.
Yeah, but I don't hold back. I let it fly.
So, because everything's connected in that story of ours, even though we've really scattered, responsibility perhaps became solidarity. Like it has transformed.
Honestly, though, I had that solidarity from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
My first job before any women, so I don't know. That was innate in me. To be a
Me too.
leader too was innate in me.
But I want to say, and I think it's still the case today, like I wanted to be part of the small elite at work, like the few people that are better than others. Like I was always seeking for that
Not me.
status.
Not me.
No, and that was not
But
ego
you,
trip because I felt secure there. I felt like some people would have my back if I failed. Like it was really just self-preservation. I'm one of the cool kid. I'm one of those that do better, and I'm one of those that help others, that mentor people, that is chosen for that subject matter expert kind of position. So it was really not just to think that I'm better. No, it was to be in a position that I would feel more comfortable into. And I would also be less prone to feel like the imposter syndrome. And I know you don't have those issues.
no.
Those are mine.
What I do know, and it's funny because for a lot of my jobs, like I talked about how I butt heads with the management for the injustices or the things that I see or unsafe or whatever. That was always me. So you described me earlier as like, well, start a union or something like that. It almost feels like every place I go, I would have been in the union. It's not for nothing. Look at my tattoo here. I don't know if you know who that is. Metallica and Justice for All, right? So it's on my fucking arm, and Justice for All, and that's how I don't like injustice, and I don't like hypocrisy either. So, and I've
And
done that
that's
at work. Find the liars and call them out on it, and that's a problem usually.
and the human aspect of being a leader at work. That what makes you a good leader is also you have to be detached. As you are, if you are a nurse, a doctor, a psychologist, you need to be detached from the
Which is maybe
situation.
why I don't have personal relationships almost with anybody.
No, but what I mean, like you feel
At
like your
work,
your
I'm
boss
talking.
your boss don't care or they're full of shit.
I'm
No,
not
it's not.
talking about the other employees too. It's not like on a personal level I'm tight with anybody, and I've been there 9 years.
Yeah, but, like, and think of it as therapy. Like your therapist is going to validate you and say, yeah. But at the end of the day, at the end of that hour, it's going to punch out that he doesn't give
Yeah,
a shit. He
no,
give a shit for an
exactly.
hour.
Yeah,
Works a bit the same. I want to say, like,
yeah, yeah.
it's rather the manager really is like a fucking sociopath that do not care at all. So at the end of the day, everybody has to do a job, and his job is not to babysit you.
But since we talked about this for long enough, I feel like you did bring up service, and you talked about it as you. I liked where you went when you said you want to describe now in addiction and us addicts together as being in solidarity together, because that is a good word. That actually makes more sense than a lot of other things we've heard. With you hear fellowship and that, right? Well, we're in a fellowship. Okay, sure. 1 second breakfast. Sorry, when I hear fellowship, I think of Lord of the Rings. So it's just in my. I'm a movie buff, so but solidarity. That word I could get behind really easily. You understand? Because and we experience it because we're both. Well, we haven't talked about it on the podcast, but we're both doing certain meetings as facilitators now, whether as hosting or co-hosting, of which I assume is what you were talking about when you started to lean into service. Like we're giving back to the community that helped us for the last year and a half,
Well,
right?
there's that, of course, but there's more to it.
I know there's more to it, but I mean, I'm trying to set you up because I know you feel like you want to say something on that.
Yes, and hear me out.
Yeah,
I was saying that part of your personality will be expressed everywhere. It expressed at work and in some capacity, but like taking a trip to Ottawa, spend like $600 just to check on somebody. Not everybody does that.
it seemed like the right thing to do at the time.
And I don't disagree. I was
You
on
were
that trip
there.
with you. And that's one of the best trips I took this year. But that's a matter of priorities. That's a matter of core values. But being, you know, the one that drives somebody back to the treatment center because they're in a bad relapse, being the person that will drive downtown to pick up somebody that's struggling, being the person that will potentially even at a point be abused of because of that generosity by somebody that knows you and can exploit that. Like that solidarity of yours is expressed almost on a daily basis.
I
You
actually
mentioned that
never
you're
thought about it like that until you brought it up.
well. I didn't talk about it. I didn't talk about it before. I'm saying it right now. I'm manifesting those words. But like
Manifest.
you see what I did, right?
Yeah, I did. Putting it
But
out
you
there.
mentioned like your recovery dad to at least one person,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of
Probably
investment.
two, actually, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's a lot of investment of your time that you choose to make.
Yes.
Not because it's a given, I want to say, because you.
Yes, you're right. You're right. Actually, though, I will almost say those rides that I did, those trips and picking people up and bringing them, that felt like a given for me. And like, if there's no one else, well, then I'll do it because I can do it. So some things felt like, well, I can do this. It's within me. It's not out of my reach to do this. I can, if it's a choice, right? I can make this choice and I can help this person right now so they don't have to worry about it for the next 4 hours. Who's going to go get them? Who's going to bring them? I can make this decision right now and put them at ease while they're struggling. And that's what I did. And I did that a couple of times. And I don't regret that at all. And I probably will always make that decision.
You know what? I did the same for maybe not for everybody, but I did the same more often than not.
I know
Even
you
if
did.
like it demands of me of putting my life on pause, at least for a few hours, because somebody else is struggling for a week. Yes, you're right. Although, like, my life's not necessarily on pause because I'm traveling for a week.
Yes,
But,
but
anyways, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, because that connection between us, it's a reason enough. Like the friendship that I have with you and with a few other people in recovery is a type of relationship I never had with anybody before. And yeah, maybe somebody's gonna do me wrong at some point.
yeah,
That's
me
part of
too.
that's what humans do. I hope I won't do that for other people, but that might happen because we are human after all, and we want to keep ourselves on our best behaviors. And I think I'm doing a good job at that. I think you're doing an amazing job at that. We may say something on that podcast that's going to be really hurtful to people that we love. That's the possibility.
Well, I do everything on a case by case basis on my gut feeling. You know this, right? Sometimes my gut overrides my head, which you also know, which I also believe is not hard to do. One of the things that I really wanted to concentrate on in recovery was for it not to be this transactional thing or to be this fleeting feeling. Like once the pink cloud goes away and the initial 6, 7, 9 months of recovery passes and that I'll let things slide or how often have I talked to you about, or yeah, you and one other person, about making sure that I work, even if some people are not reaching out to me, that I work at reaching out to them, that I keep these lines of communication open and I keep these friendships that I made, whether in rehab or in the group, that I work for them. Because otherwise, not everybody, like you've often said, not everybody recovers the same way and not everybody's in the same place as us for recovery. So I don't know what they're experiencing or what they're doing. And I don't, you know, so I'll reach out or I'll text or I'll send a meme, anything to get sometimes their attention. But I keep the lines of communication open because I've noticed when they drop and they go down. It seems to be me that has to make the effort. Does it bother me? No, it's more out of concern. Is it something that I want to change about myself? Not really. This is a part of me that I seem to like. This has to go back to the word solidarity. It seems to be something I do. It's I'm not going to say given, but it's in my nature
Yes.
to do this.
And I think that's very important because we know, like, and I agree with the statement, like, you have to be selfish to succeed at sobriety. Yes, but you need other people around you and you
Yes,
need to be there for other people. Like, there's a balance between the selfishness required to stick to your plan and to make it happen and be a priority for yourself.
the
That,
balance is hard.
most of us as either kids or parents to take care of or you know, some of us have the privilege of having significant others. Uh, like it cannot be 100% about you. There's a notion of life balance as well. Uh, and especially, like, how much time I've invested in people that I love, and I find myself with a lot of free time, you know, and I'm careful who I let in my life today. But the people that I let in, I have time for them. I'm I'm emotionally present, available, and I'm gonna be vulnerable there. Maybe, or no, I'm certain it is because I fail at being emotionally available for so long before getting sober. For me, sobriety has a lot to do with that as well. Like I kept saying for the past year, being honest, I think it's pretty acquired.
I totally
Most of
agree.
it, but there's more to it. There's the connection. I get it. Being available for others, being dependable for others, it is a significant part of my healing process. And like sometime like you, I feel like I'm the one throwing, the line and making sure that there's somebody alive on the other end. And with some people, I'm okay with it. With other people, I'm gonna set my boundaries and like,
Right.
I cannot help you. And like it's not because I cannot help even the people that I'm going to be emotionally available at all time, but I cannot be emotionally available like that, and I cannot be best friend with everyone.
Exactly. And that's the one boundary I've been able to do.
And,
It's
and
like
you know,
I kind of have like this weird quotient, like a quota. It's like I got this many right now, and it's like, okay, well, this is all I can handle right now. Maybe later it gets more or better. I don't know, but right now I have this. I'll focus on this. But it's a lot of like what you said too, the emotional availability. I can because for me it's still a learning process because I just was never brought up this way. It's not
it's not Irish.
Irish family. Holy shit, man. I mean, holy fuck. There's no hugs when you walk in at Christmas, right? You sit down and if you get a wave, that's good. Otherwise, you just slide right into the conversation that's already going on, like nothing happened. That's how that's how affectionate it is. For me, like you were discussing, being emotionally available, that is still hard for me. That I have to become aware of it sometimes because it's very easy for me disassociate, shut off, go into my head, do my shit. Being selfish in sobriety, I don't have a problem with. Boy, that unlike you, I have no kids, right? So they're not, there are no young kids running around. I don't have those responsibilities. My mother has passed. There's not there's nothing to really distract. That's why I was able to do those things off the cuff like that, make those decisions because I didn't have anybody that I had to worry about. And I didn't have anybody to answer to. I'm answering only to myself. So I was able to make those decisions and do these things and run off and go get a person here or go to Montreal and pick up this person or go to another city and help a friend, because I'm not worried about anybody at home. I have that freedom. And I could use that freedom and be selfish all the time, or I could do what I'm doing and I prefer to be doing what I'm doing. So
And there's a balance because some
there
of the
is a
time you
balance,
are
but
selfish as you need.
yes, and you know damn well that I do my own selfish shit. Well, selfish. I do my own alone time, which is movies sometimes alone. Different things I do alone.
Interestingly enough, sometimes it doesn't serve your best interest, right? Because sometimes you're going to isolate with a problem.
It's very rare. That's during an incident, though, right? Like that's a massive
I was
intrusive
not
thought.
calling you out. I'm
No,
just
I
I'm just saying
understand.
that it's more difficult to have that type of event if you are choosing to be with somebody else.
Okay, we're not going into significant other territory, are we? Because we've had
No,
this
no,
discussion.
no, 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 not at all.
I just explained to you some of my backstory, which we never discussed on here, and it's probably a little. What did I say? It's a signpost of why I'm not in any relationship or looking
Oh,
for a
I understood
relationship.
it. I understood it
Yeah,
more clearly tonight than ever before. I had
and that's
ideas and
still
hints,
only
but
a part of one of the relationships, and the other one is
yes. But when I said that this is codependency, and I thank you very briefly for come coming clean on this and talking about this on the podcast because it helps me realize the same type of patterns in myself and also acknowledge that I'm evolving out of them.
Now,
You
do
know,
you
like
think that's part of Coda, or is this somebody your personal journey, your own awareness, or is it like a mixture of both?
I don't think Coda in itself did anything.
Okay, so you
It's
don't think
just,
it's helped you?
oh, no, no, no. Hear me out.
Okay, go ahead.
Humans help me. Shares help me.
Right.
Relating to other people help me. I couldn't give a lesser shit about the book. Sorry.
So you have to apologize to me. What book? You that fucking boring piece of shit that everybody's. Anyway.
Any book,
Yeah,
right? Except for the Smart Recovery Handbook. Get that, people. $15.
I think it's 19 now in Canada.
Fucking inflation.
Yes.
But it's worth it.
Yes.
And there's a friends and family as well for your
That's
friend and
true.
family. If
I
they
think it's
don't
the
hate
same
you
price.
just yet. How about that? Something like that. Yeah, just like Coda is great because it's like going to a support group that is very specific to the type
Right.
of issues I'm trying to address.
I could see how that would be beneficial though, because your mind is going to be focused in on zeroing in on that. You get
Yeah,
into
and
that mind space.
yes, and like the content that makes a lot of sense. Don't get me wrong. When I said I couldn't give a lesser shit, is that once I read it once, it's acquired. Like it's not gonna help me to keep repeating it and reading it and reading it and reading it like it's
Yeah.
a fucking Bible.
Yeah. It's like a
Not where the
user
value is
manual.
for me.
It's like a user manual for your lawnmower. I got it now.
When's the last time you opened your Heritage worksheets?
The worksheets, the science of sleep, I've looked at a few times.
Yes, because that's something you need to work on now, right?
And
But you're not redoing your entire
no,
therapy treatment over and over again, right? The content is acquired.
absolutely not.
We talk about the tools, we use the tool on a daily basis, but not from a theoretical perspective. We apply it to our normal everyday life. As for me, Coda say about the same purpose because every time I go into a room and I hear people share, it is about codependency. It is about being dependent to another human being in an unhealthy and maladaptive way. And some people are because there's dynamics as well. There's dominance, and
Yeah, absolutely.
not everybody comes from the same perspective, and
Not everybody's on the same level. Yeah.
that was also very telling, right? Because in everybody suffers from it, but not necessarily from the same angle. So there's different degrees as well. And some people, I want to say, do not even suffer from it, but they realize they made people suffer around them repetitively, and that's why they're there. So there's so much different perspective that I've never considered because I can only see with my own eyes. To answer your question, it is
Go
not
ahead.
Coda. It is not Coda. It is my own journey, but Coda is part of my own journey.
So I was right. Okay.
Yes, you were right.
Could have just said that.
Wouldn't be as interesting though.
No. I appreciated the long dialogue. No, but I could see when I hear you explain it though, I really can see like for me it would be to be in the mindset, to focus on that, to have that what I'm trying to what I'm processing, what I'm trying to heal about myself and to understand about myself. I can understand, like you said, and the shares and everything too. From this group dynamic, I could see how it'd be beneficial. Definitely, anytime that I think we both agree on this. Anytime that we're working on ourselves, whether it's with therapy or in a group, or even amongst ourselves, like sometimes when we talk alone, not even on this podcast. The podcast, we really are repeating stuff we already know in that, but we actually go into a lot of different things, and we hash out a lot of ideas or what's going on in our heads, and we tell each other. And that happens off camera often, right? When we get together. So I understand what you mean. And it, like you said, it's part of the journey. It's part of your journey. It's part of my journey when I'm with you and I'm doing this. And it just goes, I don't really want to get into that, but I mean, it kind of shows me how it's not even a smart thing. It's who, and I don't think it matters maybe even which program. It's who wants it more and who wants to grow more. and understand themselves better, right? Because you can, whether you do smart and just do what some people like to call the gaslighting, which is really just doing the disputing all the time, whenever doing any therapy or ever looking at that stuff. It's the same thing for the steps. You're basically gaslighting yourself too, because you're, I'm sorry, but it's not any different, right? If you
if
don't
you
do the work that needs to be done about the traumas and the experiences that you've had.
That's why I'm not disputing that meme with the sun, right? That's what you're referring to. I'm
Which
pretty
one?
sure.
What?
There was saying CBT therapist saying,
That,
have you think have
yeah, I like that meme though. It's good. It's funny. It makes you think. It's good. It's a good meme. It's well done.
you,
That's
if
not
you don't
mine.
want it,
Yeah, yeah.
if you don't want it, there's not a single therapist that's going to be able to help you.
That's right.
I don't dispute that meme. Yes, if you don't want CBT in your life, it won't do shit for you. We cannot force anything. We
Well,
cannot change a behavior.
well, wait a minute.
I don't.
What I was equating it to the steps is that it will take you to a certain point.
Yes.
You can white knuckle or you can cope, right? Like what you were just saying. If you don't invite the people in to help you, like the therapist and other people and other things, your coda and this and that, right? Then 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 you're stuck. You've plateaued, right? That would be a good word. You've plateaued. You've gone to the level that you're going to stay at this level. You're not gonna progress. And maybe that's fine. And there's people, and it certainly is fine for certain people. We know this, that they just that's all they want or they need. And who's to say it's not good for them? But that's not my journey, and I know it's not your journey. This is probably goes right back to heritage. I had problems sometimes because of the solidarity idea, trying to lift everybody up with me. Is like when I couldn't see people working as hard at learning and getting the tools and talking about sobriety. I was like, why not? Don't you want this? You know? So, and that we both know comes down to our acceptance too, right? But acceptance only gives you part of it, allows you to accept the problem. It doesn't allow you
Yeah.
to do any of the fixing.
And that's the thing. And I keep repeating, getting sober is the easy part. Well, getting abstinent is the easy part. And what you do from there, that's hard.
Yeah, this is the hard work.
Healing is hard. And as much as I'm critical of the concept of plateauing at attending meeting for your entire life, I understand why people choose to stay there. Like I'm not disrespectful of that at all.
I can understand. I can understand. It's like I've used the term clock punchers, right? You're clocking in. You're doing your sobriety hour. You know, it's
It's interesting because a lot of what we discussed tonight, I had never thought of. You brought me in places that I didn't consider before. That's the beauty of that podcast and the fact that we get to speak for more than 5 or 6 minutes compared to a share. That we
true.
go in depth into so many intricate things. And since we're trying to make it an interesting dialogue as well, I think what it does for me, it tricks my brain into I'm not thinking as much and I'm talking more.
You're taking less time to be self-reflective and to be careful what you say. Yeah, you're learning from me.
Because I'm careful that what I say is not going to get us canceled. But that's my only concern. I'm not concerned about how deep I'm going to share about myself.
Well, clearly I don't have a problem with it either because I say way too much sometimes on these podcasts. But it's part of my philosophy that I always share about is I got to get this stuff out. Even if somehow it bites me somewhere from somebody or something later, well, I still own it. I own it. I said it. It's what I thought or what I was thinking at the time. Maybe my mind or my opinion will be different down the line, farther in recovery, maybe with more perspective. I'll have different ideas on this stuff. But where I'm at right now, I'm not bending. Right now, I'm not bending. This is how I think. This is what I feel. And I know I won't drink if I do that. I'm a motion drinker, right? So I know that if I can expel anything that possibly would play with me like that, then I'm doing myself a service. So
Yeah. Because you cannot drink at something that you've already got
And boy, do I ever, if we got a couple hundred people or 700 or I don't know how many people see this, it's like, well, it's out there. And maybe it helps one person, right? Maybe there's someone like you or me, and they're like, oh man, I know what he's talking about. Fuck yeah, I was in a relationship like that. Or, oh, I'm like that at my job too, man. And they just don't listen. And whatever.
Yeah. And you know what? I get those comments like every week. And the most recent was a guy saying, "I appreciate that you don't hold back. Like you go no bullshit about what you have to say." And I think the way that he was saying it is that I don't even do that by myself. So seeing you doing it on the screen made me challenge myself. Oh, that's
That
interesting.
is something. Wow. Well, and there's just a case of, I don't want to speak for him, but I mean, we know kind of what this is, where we didn't express ourselves and even challenge ourselves. I know for myself, I was perfectly comfortable in some weird way. I was perfectly comfortable in my miserable existence of the jail cell that I had the key to. Right? I had the key to that jail cell.
You know, you know what is maybe ironic is that I don't feel like I have any key today. I'm in a lot of uncertainty. I don't know what tomorrow is going to be made of.
That is where I'm at too. And this is part job related and other things, but yes, that's where I'm at.
Yeah. And I was reading an article actually on smartrecovery.org today. And the article was published this week, whatever, it's a blog post. But the person was saying, like, a recovery at some point gets hold. I am now in discovery.
Right.
And it was really speaking to me. And the way he was explaining it was that I'm not going back anywhere. Like, there's no point where I'm going to be back where I was. The path is not made this way. But I have to discover where I'm going. I have to discover who I am. I have to discover what I want. I have to discover what life has for me. I got to discover my limits, And for me, not that recovery is boring or recurring, but some of it is acquired, right? Let's be honest. Some of
Yes.
it is,
Yeah. Right. There's
and
work involved.
facilitating group made me realize that like there's some topics that I have absolutely no emotive
I know
relation
what
to,
you mean. I know what you mean.
but I bring value in my feedback because I am not emotionally
Invested.
I am invested in their story,
Yeah, but not, it
but
doesn't,
I'm detached.
you're
I'm
detached. That's
detached.
right.
Like when I was saying like the professional report eventually that a therapist has versus when you are on the same level and you are in the same situation is not the same. But on the other end, like some topics are deeply affected for me, and it's a totally different game. And that's why I'm saying like facilitating group made me realize that yes, I am making progress. That's undeniable in my recovery, but it also pinpoints really easily where my areas of development are as well.
Well, since I've been facilitating, what I like about it is it allows me to stay connected to the community, especially that because I have so many things, especially now that art is starting back up and I have other interests too. And I want to have I want to have my personal life, which even if there's no one I'm sharing it with, it's still my personal life, right? I want time for myself. So and I was never going to be the person that was going to be on like 4 meetings or 3 meetings after a year, right? And that happened almost at the year mark. It's like when I did that share, it's because I knew where I was going. It was almost like saying goodbye to some of them in case you're not in the meeting I'm in when I'm on. Being a facilitator allows me to stay connected to this community, which I love so much. And the people in it is enormous for me. It's grounding for me. And you're right in that I at first never thought of it. It was presented to me as service, and I'm ambiguous on the word service, but it was something I would have wanted. I want to be able to do whatever I can to help people move along on their journey. Often, what I hope that I bring is exactly that: hope and recovery. That and I try to keep my facilitating pretty loose. I try to be, if at all possible, if it's not a heavy night, I try to be buoyant, if you know what I mean. I try to be not dour. It doesn't have to be serious all the time. Much like our podcast, like our meme page, I don't take everything seriously if you don't have to, right? And I try to bring some of that when I facilitate, but obviously there is people that are going through very serious things at certain points when they share and on certain topics. But that's the thing. I can empathize with everything I hear in each meeting, and it makes me realize that what I wanted for myself, it's starting to happen. And where I used to think I was just a robot and I had no feelings, that I could just shut things on and off, that's going away. And I'm very optimistic of where I'm at in my progress, in that sense, that I feel like I'm here for these people. They're here for me too. And solidarity, right? We brought up that word. I'm really going to stick to that. I love that word now. We're all in this together, right? So, and in that hour or hour and a half of a meeting, this is where I can show my solidarity with the group.
Picking up the pieces
And I'm really actually enjoying doing this part. I might even, if they ever ask me, I might even host one more night or co-host one more night, because I feel like it's not tapping into my reserves. It doesn't feel like it's gonna interfere with me or drain me or take away from time I need for myself or my sobriety or lifestyle balance. I believe I have it in my reserve to do another if ever they need me. So I'm very pleasantly pleased so far with it, because much like you, I know we both talked about it. I wasn't sure about how I would handle feedback, and
Mhm.
all I can do is just be there for the person, hear what they're saying. A lot of times I can relate, and often I'll relate my own experience, because it's the easiest thing for me to do is to share my own experience, not as an example or anything, just as exactly what it is, a shared experience or a somewhat shared experience. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's something else. It's it's funny. I'm sure you feel the same way. There is a responsibility. There's a, as much as I try to keep, like I said, I use the word buoyant and light, but I realize it's grave. There's a responsibility there, and and there's a decorum, and I take it very seriously, even if I keep it light. And I've seen your meetings because I popped in. I love what you do too. I We have a good group of facilitators, though, already. We learned from them, so we got lucky. We talked to them. We went to Ottawa for the ones we like, right? We were worried about them, and it's not a lie. They know why we came. It's part of what that word. I'm not gonna stop using solidarity, because boy, does that feel like exactly what it is. And it's odd if I don't recall it ever coming up. We keep using that word fellowship. It doesn't feel strong enough.
Do you know what I'm going to try to do in my next meeting? And somebody says, "Thanks for your service." I'm sorry, that's not service; it's solidarity. Make it branded, just like you. I was so stressed the first night I had to give feedback, and I got lucky because I got to co-host 2 meetings without talking. Like I was just listening, and we talked about all of the shares after. You know what? So I had to appreciate what it is to do the feedback. The first night I was on my own. I was truly on my own. It was a Tuesday, and I was like Morgan was there.
You're gonna
Other people were
continue.
there. Other people were there, but I was alone giving feedback,
I
and
think
it's
the
20
word
some
you were
people.
looking for was facilitator. The other facilitator was there.
The other facilitator was there, yes, to take care of technicality on the room, but I was the only one giving feedback, and I was so stressed. Like I never had that stress doing the podcast because it's easy to talk about myself. It's easy to be critical of concepts. It's easy to attack an organization and not attack. Talked about organization. It is,
Semantics.
yes, it is, however, extremely more delicate to absorb what somebody shares raw about themselves and give them feedback about this. For me, that's a privilege.
It is.
Honestly, like being entrusted to do that shouldn't be taken for granted, banalized, because like what you say, what you say in a feedback can be very, very impactful. So you got to make sure
Yes.
that you say the right
Exactly.
thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, sometimes we will not do the best job. Like that's something that I already understand. But I want to give out the best of myself in all of those feedbacks for as much as I can. Otherwise, I'm going to be stepping back from that position because I take it very seriously. And it went so naturally. I was just surprised, a bit like when we do the podcast. I don't really intellectualize what I'm going to say. Sometimes I'm rambling a bit in my feedback or
Yeah.
cutting it short
Join the
because I see
club.
the people or I see the person's not interested. I'm going to cut it short. I'm not wasting your time or mine. But I want to say that I think I was kind of meant to do that in a way. And it correlates to what I'm good at work as well, right? Human
Right.
connection and taking care of people and resolving issues. In that case, we don't give advice, we don't resolve issues, but we give food for thoughts, right? That's all. That's the only thing we really do. But what I appreciate the most about it is that it serves the selfish purpose of making sobriety about me. Because in my feedback, I talk about from my perspective, and I'm
Which,
not
yeah, which is what I
never
do too.
judging what somebody says. I'm says this remind me of myself and what I think about my own situation is that. And at least half of the times, things that I would not have said intentionally. So a bit like the podcast, it brings me in places that I didn't think I was going to.
I like to, like I said, I like to keep it light if I can. That's just because I am. I'm happy to see these people. You know what I mean? So if they're in a meeting, I'm happy to there because they need a meeting, and I'm happy to be there for them. But I'm not going to use anybody's name. There was this person that apparently she wasn't going to talk. She said she couldn't talk on the subject. She didn't apply to her, whatever, right? And she started doing her share. And when she was done her share, I was able. What I appreciated the most is because I it's like we're something. It's I do it all the time. You talk about something and you're not aware that you actually are talking on the subject. You think it doesn't apply to you or you have nothing to say on this. And when you're done, it was about exactly that. And you just shared a nugget, right? And she had done the same thing. And I pointed out to her, I said, well, I'm not going to use names or anything. It had to do with grandkids. So I was able to relate it back to the topic. I said, you just spent a minute and a half talking about your grandkids, and it relates exactly to what you said you couldn't. It didn't apply to you, and you couldn't. You weren't going to share on it. So you were just going to talk about your day. It's just the realization that came on her face because sometimes we're not aware. It's like me in my relationship, not realizing I was responsible. That I had responsibility, and it was a given. She probably thought the same thing. This was a given, and it didn't relate to this topic or this subject or whatever. And it took someone to echo back her own words to her because basically all I did was use her words to remind her you just shared on this topic. Yeah, and that's what I like when that happens. Boy, do I like that. It's just to remind them that yes, you are doing the work, and yes, you are. You are doing these tools. You just don't always see it because you're doing it naturally now.
You know what the first sentence to the best shares are? There's two for me. The first one is, I'm not sure I want to share on that topic actually, but let me have a shot.
Yes.
Or I'm not sure I have something to say about this. And then people just let out. It's like it's a key to unlock like the truth. Pow!
Yes.
And then you just hit with the best share you ever heard, right?
Yeah.
And that never
It's
ceases to
almost
amaze
like
me.
they're trying to not get expectations too high or something. It's like
Yeah. At least for me, when I do
or
things
it's a
like that,
almost like for me it would be almost a self-esteem issue. Because I'm guilty of that. I don't really think what I have to say is pertinent. So I'll just preface it by saying I don't know what I'm talking about. And now let me just share 5 minutes on the deepest parts of
and that's a good point what you say about self-esteem because
it is. It's self-esteem based.
we have to find some ways to do in spite of our low self-esteem or tendency to self-attack or self-sabotage our ideas
All things I'm good
and
at
inability to communicate.
or
And I
bad
think
at.
there might be a little bit of that, but I was thinking the other way around as well. Like perhaps you doubt that you have anything to say because you're holding back. And then by saying this, well, I'm not holding back anymore. I've wrapped myself out about the fact that I was holding back. So let me clear my throat now.
There's that too. The ratting out. See, I'm not a big person that rats out myself because I haven't had a lot of things like necessarily to rat.
Because you're a saint.
Yes, it's not that, but you know which topics end up making me share. It's because it's very emotion based. So I come at it very emotion based. Uh, but I understand what you're saying because it's true. People do. It's like a free pass to rat yourself out. You know, it's and then that's you're right. They'll preface it by saying like oh I don't really think I have much to say on this, and when they're done, it's kind of like dude.
You know, recognize who I'm talking about when I say this, but that guy always says like I never ended a meeting feeling worse than I was when I get into that meeting.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
I've had personally, honestly, it happened that a meeting fucked me up, like it did, because I was beyond saving that night. But I want to say that that feeling when I'm facilitating is very, very powerful. Like I feel at peace after a meeting because I really feel like I'm on my X and I'm bringing value to a lot of people in vulnerability in both ways, right? And it is not something that I've experienced a lot in my life. Yes, I'm a dad, and there's a lot of that in parenting. Kids are not broken like adult addicts.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
It's not the same. There's not all that baggage either. Well, and you've heard me say it in how many shares, and I still stress it, even when I start the rooms often. If I feel like I don't see hands up or something, I talk about sharing how I always believe that it's like you get that, you come in with the 100-pound weight, and when you leave, 95 pounds are gone. There's only 5 pounds of weight left on your chest because you got out whatever needed to be said that day. It might have nothing to do with the topic, but you probably have something you need to say that day. I stress it. I'm always using myself as the example. I always say I can't shut up. I cannot stop talking, or that's when I'm doing wrong. That's when I'm not being in my sobriety mindset. When I start keeping my thoughts to myself, and we've heard this from other people too,
Yes.
when I decide that I don't have value in what I say, or my opinion, or my experience, now I'm already going the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that's what I hope when people come into the room, whether they think they have something to say or not, just say something for a few minutes. Tell me about your day, because something's going to come from it for you, not for me.
Yes.
It's going to be something valuable to you.
And I guess that's something that we've experienced numerous times on the other side of the screen,
Because we've experienced
receiving
it
feedback.
ourselves. Yes, we know. We've been doing this for a year.
Yeah. Uh, but I'm gonna say that like isolating and being quiet on the meeting, for me, that's the biggest red flag, especially with the type of meetings that we are running and everybody shares. If somebody doesn't share for a couple of days,
Oh yes, for a couple of days, yes, I would agree. Because I do meetings where I don't share.
oh yeah, and sometimes I don't have time to share. That's different. But some people, that they're struggling, but they keep it in,
Yes,
and the check-ins very, very. You feel the pain, but they don't share. That for me is a big red flag.
yes. And now I'll just jump in for 1 second, because as I've got farther into my year, well, I've told you this. There would be nights where there's a lot of people's hands up, and I won't put my hand up because it's not a night where I feel like I'm coming in with a 100-pound weight. I've had a good day. I'm having a good day. There'll be other meetings. When I see so many hands, if those people have their damn hands up, I want them to be heard. So,
Yes,
but how many times have I said, when I do finally end up sharing, let's say it's a week where I haven't, I'll usually preface it. And when I finally do, I'll go, I haven't shared yet this week. I've said that often. I'll say, I haven't shared this week, and I know I got to fucking share. I know I got to speak. And then I don't even
yes.
know what I'll say because I kept quiet for maybe 2, 3 meetings because I let other people go. But I know that I have to share at one point.
But that's a good point. Like sometimes I don't feel like I have anything to get off my chest.
Mm-hmm.
But those are the nights where my share are easier to do because I go on the topic. I pick up on, well, actually, I'm like giving feedback in a way, but that's not feedback. It's only me.
Right.
But
Dissecting
based on
yeah.
what other people have said, my own experience and like my own perspective on the topic is easier to give and shorter share, of course. And that's why I usually put my end at the end of the meeting
So do I. Yeah.
if there's some time, because I want to make sure that everybody that has a need for it get the opportunity.
This is true. And I do too. Sometimes I close out the meetings.
But it occurred to me that not only on meetings that I facilitate, but on a couple occasions I had to write to you in private, says, "Put your damn hands up, man.
Yeah, you have.
You need some pushing sometimes."
Yes, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I know there was maybe the one time it was like, well, I got nothing to say because I think I just didn't like the topic,
It
whatever
happens.
reason. Yeah, and but in a lot of ways, it's the same thing like you, all right? Come in at the end. It's about I don't know. It might tie into that imposter thing we've talked about, feeling the
The imposter
imposter,
syndrome. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
imposter syndrome. We're not coming in like we need to talk now. You know what I mean? That we're in our head maybe, and we think we're handling things always all right. And most times we are, but sometimes we're not. But we think we are, or we think we're handling it okay. But there's something inside because I've had some wicked fucking shares where, wow, and not to say that I'm in there and I'm weeping all the time. It happened during therapy, during that stretch of therapy that got really deep, where I had a bunch of shares in a couple of weeks that were very emotional because I was dealing with a lot of stuff. There are a lot of shares of mine that were very passionate about community, about certain tools and certain things that happen, right, and sobriety, and even the word using being proud to be an addict. Like how many times have I shared that? People have tried to correct me on that one a few times, right? Oh no, you mean you're proud to be in recovery? No, fuck no. I listen to me repeat it again one more time, right? I'm proud that I'm an addict because I can't look back. Well, I just gave you part of my history, a little bit of a glimpse of part of my life, right? It is what it is now, right? This is the one time that it is what it is really applies because there's nothing you can do about that. That is past tense. There's nothing that can be changed because it happened already. For me, going forward, being a better person in recovery means I am an addict. I'm proud to be an addict because I'm a better person now than I ever was even before I became an addict. Because I did not have the awareness, I did not have the mindfulness, I did not have the tools. I didn't know how to be a human being. I didn't know that I was disassociating all the time. I didn't realize how insecure I was. I didn't realize how my esteem was low. All of these different things. I didn't know how to be with people. I didn't know how to be vulnerable. I didn't know how to communicate properly. All this happened after I became an addict. I could be still going through my life unaware, even if I had never become an addict, and still be a piece of shit or just a borderline person, a responsible person, but not really detached from everything, not really vulnerable, not really caring. Live a fine life. I like the life I'm
Yeah.
living now. I like having all these feelings, even though certain days I don't like these feelings.
We cannot have only good days.
That's right.
That's the cost of
You,
a balanced life,
it
is
doesn't
that you
even
are
have
gonna
to be a
have
day.
bad
It could
days.
be just one bad hour.
Yes. It doesn't have to ruin your day
Right.
for that hour.
That's right. It's hard,
But our
but that's
old
part of.
behavior would have been to pick up. We pick up because we've had discomfort for an hour.
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
Discomfort is part of my life today, and I guess should be part of everybody's life
But I
because
think
it's
what
normal.
people don't hear when I say that is when I talk about what I was before I was ever an addict or an alcoholic. That
Yes.
they don't hear me when I say no more now from my experiences because of that. And because of becoming that, where I had to go and face myself in treatment and with counselors and with grief counselors and then a therapist and a community of people that have gone through similar situations as me that can relate back stories that I can understand and they can relate back feelings and situations that I handle the same way. And what happens in their head is happening to me sometimes too. You understand what I mean? Without all
Yes.
of this, I would have never discovered really who I am. And I'm still discovering who I am. This is part of the journey that I love. Without being an addict, I could never be this. And that's why I always say I'm proud to be an addict.
I'm not comfortable with the word proud, but I'm grateful.
Choose what you want. Grateful, proud, whatever. But
No, but
I'm grateful, yes, fine, but I'm proud. Because I have to
I'm
use
proud.
that word. I have to be proud going forward. Because I was never
Yes,
proud back there. Had I been
exactly.
proud, maybe I would have grown up a little differently.
So two things. I'm grateful that I'm an addict. I am proud to be a recovering addict. And I'm aware that that's gonna be shocking for a lot of people, but you're right. What you said, like the person that I was before addiction is not a good person like I am today.
Not as good as we are now, right? We like each other better now, don't we?
Well, I hope so.
Take the addiction part out before it all happened. I still
I
like
think
myself better now than ever, almost than I ever was. Maybe that glimmer of hope when you're very young and you got these dreams and shit
yeah,
before life changed you or you decided to disassociate or cope with life before you ever touched the booze and the drugs.
100%. So that's why, I'm not comfortable with the concept of removing character defect. And I already spoke about it. It's because you don't strip part of yourself. Like
This
the
doesn't happen.
personality you have,
You hide it.
you gotta have to deal with it.
You hide it. You mask it.
Yeah, you can mask it.
Or
You can,
disassociate, mask, choose whatever word you want. Ignore.
but hear me out. What's much more uncomfortable than that, from my belief system, if you remove all of the defect that makes me an addict, let's say I go back to that person I was before, I'm not interested. This is not a cure. This is not a solution. I got to take all of it, that addict. I got to take all of it, the person that I was before, consolidate all of this and grow. I cannot do that if my goal is to remove my character defects. It's impossible. That's why, and I never thought of that. But the way you said it and the vulnerability you came with and said, the person that I was before is not as good as the person I am today is very, 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 very important.
It is for me. It really is. I'm fucking serious when I talk about it now. I mean, if this is how, it's hard to explain. This is what it took to get me here. Some people, now, if I was spiritual, some people might say that was just, the roadblock that, let's say, God up there threw me to make me get to this destination. But the destination is not finished. But like you said, taking out character defects, I agree with you. You can't do that. What I feel like I'm doing is I'm going, even though I don't live in my past, I do remember myself. It's almost like I disassociate myself from all that other stuff, but remember how I was acting and what I didn't know. A lot of it is what I didn't know and what I wasn't aware of. And
Yes.
the part of the process now is to take that person, bring him with me, forgive him, but he's got to come with me because that's still me. I got to bring this person along. It's not character defects. It's not fucking flaws. It's me. It's who I was, who didn't know any better, who didn't understand, or just didn't listen. All of the above. But I got to bring him. And he's got to come with me now. I can't leave him
Yeah.
behind. I
That's
can't
powerful,
become
Eric.
something I'm not.
Exactly. That's very powerful. And how many shares you hear people says they're trying to battle their addiction, they're trying to kill it, they're trying to leave it behind, they're trying to ignore it. I never did that. It's not a demon that possesses me. I have demons. That's not one of them. That's who I am. And like,
Yeah, I agree. Because that person I was, how he handled those situations was drugs and alcohol.
yes, but I'm still that person. The only difference is that I choose to live life sober. I choose to face whatever come my way in a healthy way as much as I can. I'm not perfect. That person was not perfect. That person was not the worst person in the world either.
That's
That
right.
person was loved. That person was loved, and the person that loved the least, that
Yep, this is that. We throw this out to our friend from Ashes to Awesome. You are loved. We don't hear it enough, right? We didn't believe it either that you are loved.
yeah,
We didn't love ourselves to begin with, and it starts right there. You can't believe somebody telling you it if you don't fucking believe it in yourself. So,
and that's why his statement and the recurring statement on this podcast is so powerful, because you cannot hear that too much. And that's one of the things that's just hard to believe at times, especially when you are in active addiction. But I'm thinking to myself, and I'm going to ask you as well, I have a feeling like there's a reason why it takes a lot of time for me to feel that I love myself. It's because I'm not trying to ignore parts of me. I'm not trying to dissociate from the kid, the teenager, the young adult that I was. And there's a lot more acceptance to do if you not fucking delusional about
I
it.
fucking totally agree. You just almost gave me what was that word you made up today?
Epiphany.
Yeah, but no, that's a real word. You made up another word, but you did give me almost an epiphany there. In that it's the same thing for me. Is I haven't realized that yet until you actually said it out loud. That is something I'm still working on. Is accepting that in the right way. You understand? That's probably part of my. There's still part of me that doesn't like some of those or questions or is mad at decisions or actions I didn't take or did take, and it
Yes.
comes into self-attack. If I do anything that kind of feels my brain feels resembles partially that kind of thing, if only even for 20 minutes, right? You know what I mean? And I think that
Well, yeah.
might tie into my self-attack that I get sometimes, the intrusive thoughts that I get.
And I think that's why that's a very long process for us. Like
Mm,
our sobriety is doing great. My self-esteem is not
pretty good.
improving. It's improving, but not as fast.
I work hard on my self-esteem, but
Me
it
too.
shouldn't be this hard, right? If I have to keep reminding myself and working on it, it's because it's slow. It's not at its optimum level, right? It's not functioning as it should. It's not floating on its own, all right? I'm bailing water out. I'm blowing into the inner tube. Something, because it's not there yet. It's a work in progress.
Yes. And it will never be perfect, right? So we'll
No,
always.
but it's definitely not where it should be because you can feel it. I know you'll understand this when you hear it. The weirdest thing the only word I can think of is in French, faiblesse, faiblesse. Probably because I saw it
Hurt
in a
you.
damn. Yeah, it hurt, it wound you like a deep wound out of the blue, right? Could be something said or something you interpret, and it shouldn't bother you, and you know it shouldn't bother you, but you felt it. And it like sank into your stomach, like, and it gave you pause, and you get that moment of uncertainty or that moment of doubt. That's the self-esteem. It's still not there where it should be.
And I want to say you described physically what trauma processing is.
That's because I'm doing it.
No, it's. I'd like to say that's what's behind the self-esteem problem is the hurt, the wound, as you mentioned. And the way our brain works is that we forgot most of it because we had to, not to break.
No, and I don't know. It wasn't with you. I've told this at the beginning in Heritage with my psychiatrist there. One of the first things I told her is I have a lot of non-memories, stuff I don't remember, like years that feel like I can't tell you what really happened. Like nothing happened, like nothing happened and nothing really happened. So it was every
Yeah.
day the same, right? And had a lot of
It's
that.
funny that you mentioned that because I've turned 18 months old recently, and that's coming like as old memories of things that I've repressed forever. Stupid things that happened when I was 15 or 21 or 27 that I have absolutely no memory of. And then all of a sudden I'm just sitting there and then paf, there's a movie playing in my head, a movie I've never seen.
Yeah,
It's a grand premiere.
yeah. They're not very long. I get them too. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah,
very short.
yeah.
But like you get that memory and then you got to figure out what it is about, right? The whole situation, the era it is intricate into.
Some of them I get that feeling I just described to you. I get that image and then I get that feeling. It's like, what? Why?
So I guess that's a good sign. It's
Yeah,
very painful. It's hurting to do the trauma processing, especially on our own. Good thing we're in therapy, both of us, but there's some healing going on that's undebatable. But man, that's hard. That's harder than to stop using a large amount for me. Stop using what's the easiest part of all this.
I can't explain it either. Once I was detoxed, that was it. It was fine. I was ready to go. I'm sober. Let's stay sober. How do I stay sober? But you're right. It was gone. I didn't even. I never felt anything. And you could say, oh yeah, you're in a safe space. You're in rehab and that. No, I
Well, that's the case for a lot of people. They relapse day zero out of rehab, right?
yeah, yeah. Which I'm glad I don't understand. You understand what I mean
Well,
when I say I'm glad I don't understand?
yes.
It's
But
not
I
that I
think on the
wish it on
podcast,
these people. I'm glad I can't relate.
no, exactly. I don't relate, but I think we really nailed the reason why we don't have that, because we had accepted before treatment
Yeah, we've
that
gone
we were
over this
not
topic
using
many
pen.
times. Yeah. Yes. Well,
But
it
anyways,
was. Yeah.
uh, that's interesting because treatment did not fix me in any way. It gave me the desire to get better and a belief that I can, because I never thought I could before.
I'll expand on that a little bit for myself personally. It allowed me for the first time to actually know how to look inwards. Therapy helped dealing with my grief while there, and then after helped. All stuff I never tapped into because I just ignored it, even in sobriety or not in active use. I just didn't deal with it, right? I will say that's what I take away. For me, really, there were certain people that really somehow reached me. There was an awakening. I was ready to be sober, for sure. I was ready to be sober. I was ready this time to embrace it the proper way. I wanted I wanted the discovery this time, right? But to do the discovery, I have to remember. I have to learn from behaviors, which is what they teach us, how to change them, how to dispute them, and what to be aware of, right? So I had all that, but the other thing I got, and I've shared about it in meetings before, was that community. That's what's special to me. I will never stop talking about heritage that way. It was special in the organic nature of the experience, in that it was all encompassing how the community was compassionate and caring. You know what I mean? It just, and I've used the word an example. In a lot of ways, they were my example going forward of how I should be and how a proper human being should relate to other human beings. I learned it from these people. I learned it from the kitchen staff. I learned it from the cleaning staff. I learned it from the people in the office. And see, I didn't even touch on the counselors and the people doing the workshops. Just the people there are in the staffing. It started
Yeah.
right there to begin with, and it implied everybody was involved, right? So it's was just it was it was the right time for me to have that experience, because that's what I needed in my life, because that's what I wasn't doing before.
Yes. And it reminded me of one of my shared this week where I said, I was surprised by what I said myself, but I was so convinced that I was a bad person going into treatment. And that's coming from a person that do not believe that good or bad person exists. Except me. Me, I'm a bad person. And probably the people that I'm going to meet in treatment, because you got to be a bad person to be sent to rehab. Like you must have fucked up pretty hard. And, I personally know that I've fucked around and found out, right? The most shocking thing was, again, just after being processed into the facility, well, there's only good people there and people that are honest, people that are actually cracked open and being entirely honest about their deepest shit. And I never thought of myself as a bad person again. And that happened day one.
Pretty much. Yep. Pretty much. Yep. Pretty much. Walking out of my room to the smoke shack for the first time and being welcomed by well, I'm not gonna say their names because you're just gonna bleep them anyways. But by two guys there, and one that's gonna tell me one that one that tells me everything that's going to happen to me because he just went through it, right? And how I'll feel and everything, right? And then the other one who's quiet and introspect, but we connect right away in that for some reason. And of course, it started there, right? You're at your lowest, and you, like you just said, you think you're bad, you think you're a piece of shit, or you're just like me, you think you're worthless. And two people are there to tell you, and they're like, "No, man, you're good. You'll be good. You just wait. You're gonna be good. It's gonna be all right. This is what you're gonna feel. This is what's gonna happen. You're gonna shake like this for a little while. This, right? Don't worry, right?" And it starts that seed is planted there. That we're gonna be friends, because right now I have no friends. I mean, all kinds of things you're at your lowest. So every person that could show you an act of kindness,
It means the world.
it means the world, because you so desperately need it at that moment.
Yeah. And let's be honest, most of those friendships are not bond to last. But at the moment, they're so real and genuine.
They are. In the moment, they are. It's like, I don't want to relate it to war, but you're there under difficult circumstances dealing with something together.
Yes. And also, one learning experience there that I still experience every day is that we're all the same. We're all very different. But whatever you want to call this thing that's addiction, you know, call it a disease, a disorder, a sin, I don't give a shit. We all have it. And it's all the same. It made me feel like I belong somewhere. And it's crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
Like cancer patients probably do not feel like they belong to cancer community.
I wouldn't be surprised in the support groups they do, though. Um,
Yeah, probably. Yes,
yeah,
it makes sense.
yeah. Oddly enough, I felt almost part of the community of the center too, because, like I said, I related so much and I talked so much with the other staff, all the staff, and you know, the one we go to our meetings to as well. There were certain people that gave me their time, allowed me to get back to being normal by having normal conversations, which were not about recovery most of the time.
Same thing. The most time I spent in the office was being a human being, not a client.
Yeah, refining yourself, you're refining your voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, you know, Catherine, I think we can name her, has been repeatedly asking us, when are you going to get involved? When are you going to be doing workshop or meetings, whatever?
She asked for more.
No, but you know, like when we visited,
Yeah, when we
she
visited.
asked
Yeah.
us this.
Yeah, but
Like to me, I still felt like I was just a client, right? My self-esteem in that equation was that I was just a client.
feel somewhat that imposter syndrome when I'm with the staff. I don't feel that way when I'm with the people that are there. Whereas I want to be able to show them recovery.
Exactly. Because we belong to the community of people that have this problem,
That's right.
whatever we want to call it. But it really warmed my heart to see how the staff sees us today, you and I, after a year and so of sobriety. And what it made me realize is that for most of the staff, and especially like not the therapist, but the support staff, as you mentioned, the kitchen people, cleaning ladies, they don't care what happened after. But when you're there in the moment, you are a human being and you deserve respect.
And
You deserve dignity.
and now we're just visiting, and the people they're paying attention to are there.
Yes, but
That's what I mean. That is part of it. Is their attention is there, and that's normal. Their attention is to the staff, the clients that are there at that moment.
of course they hire uniquely good person. But in my mind, because of my self-esteem issues and because of what I thought an addict was, a bad person, before we visited that day this summer, not that I felt that they were not genuine, but I felt like they were kind to us because they're paid to do so.
You thought when we went back to visit, there was going to be some kind of difference.
Well, you know, like an addict remains an addict. Why do you trust an addict? You know what I mean?
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that I think they know certain people are going to work hard at it. You know what I mean? I think they know some character traits and some, I don't want to say stereotypes, but some people that are just, they probably have a feeling about that they're gonna continue. Even if they relapse, they're gonna continue and they're gonna get better. And I think I believe if they gave us so much time while we were there, it's because they believed in us. And maybe it's time for you to believe in yourself too.
That's exactly it. Like they saw in us the value we have lost sight of.
Yeah. Yes, that's very well said.
And a
That
part of
was
the
something that
saying,
gave me back.
yes, a part of the saying, you know, in the room specifically, we'll love you until you love yourself.
Started there.
It starts there, both with staff and other patient. And it takes some time because until and it was almost a year and a half sober, but I still felt like I was just a client, right? Until I actually saw how they treated me. And I hope some of them will listen to that podcast because honestly, that only made my day, that made my year, I gotta say. Made me realize that I am not just an addict because we spend a lot of time talking about her addiction.
Yeah.
Apparently, we do recover. That's the thing.
That's the point. And this is what we talk about all the time is that Be careful of the words we choose. There's no cure. You're never cured, but you can be recovered. Hopefully at 20 years, and if you're doing well and you're living a balanced lifestyle and you got goals or you've met some goals that you set out for after you got sober,
I was reading
I
my
would say you're slightly recovered.
probably. I was reading my post treatment plan recently, the one I made, the original one in recovery, and I had said for 2 years I'm going to do 1 or 2 meetings each week. It didn't go that way, but it made me remind myself that I thought that at some point the meeting would be not irrelevant, but I can move on, right? I'll go to some meeting sometime after that. It was crazy about that is that it's in 6 months. 6 months, I'm going to be 2 years sober. Well, apparently, I'm sharing some meetings, so I'm gonna have to continue at least some of them.
Don't feel bad. Mine was the 1 year mark. Yeah, I don't regret writing that because it made me in some ways it made me work harder at my goals. Sometimes it made me pushing too hard, pushing too fast, but somehow I had faith or confidence in my ability to make the right decisions, hopefully reach out, rely on my support system. But when that year came, even though I pulled back from the meetings, I wasn't leaving the meetings, right? It was going to be one and possibly another sometimes. And now, of course, I open to facilitate. To me, it feels like I met some of my goals or expectations for that, and I hadn't really given thought to what would happen should I become part of this community and they need me. And for that, I'm grateful, and I'm grateful to give back to this community. So
Same.
And especially to the center, where it all started. In a lot of ways, I'm paying back to Heritage because that place I really owe a large debt.
And there's another thing as well that almost took me away from the rooms at first. I was scared I wouldn't be accepted in the community for various reasons, such as not being addict enough.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Little did I know.
It's incredible to know that our low self-esteem knows no bounds.
It's crazy.
Yeah. It's like, you know what? I'm not fucking good enough of an addict. I don't belong here. I'm not hard, man. So stupid the way we think. Imposter syndrome, comparing, worrying, doubting, all these things. It's like, the fuck, man. We're all coming from the same. We're all ended up in the same room.
Yes. And that's what I mean, that we are all the same. Nobody end up in Heritage by mistake. Sorry, you're not an addict. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I don't think that happens very often.
You don't have an actual problem.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, really. Oh, the blood test came back and the urine sample, and get the fuck out.
You can moderate. Go ahead. Have a safe trip.
No, want a cigarette? Yeah. No, I don't think that happens very often.
Yeah, we've grown a lot, eh?
Well, it continues, right? This is what we want.
I'm gonna tell you one thing. I need the community.
Yep.
I need the feedback on my feedback. I need you. I need Madalena. I need a fuck ton of people. I really need a fuck ton of people, because if I'd be on my own against a system that doesn't see that progress just yet, I'd have given up alone. Because by myself, I'm going to believe that system. I'm no good. I'll never get better, And that would have definitely happened, because this is what I did my entire life. Rather was using or not, I was always isolating and thinking very low of myself, self-attacking as a sport or hobby. Spend my life. My remedy to that, not cure, remedy to that, is stay connected, keep reaching out. And I have no choice but to have faith, because if I look only rationally at facts, things are not really improving, but they are. So eventually it will pay off. But we're not patient.
I never was to begin with.
And so naive. I'm so naive. Like, if life could be a pink cloud, that's the best part of all this.
Then how would you know the cloud is pink if life were a pink cloud all the time?
If the reward for sobriety was the pink cloud. There's a reason why it's not, because life fucking is awful, but beautiful too. And the balance in all this is the secret.
Balance in all this is the community. It's the connection we have with people that we didn't have before. Okay, there is certain people, I guess, that don't need that.
Yeah. Or eventually you grow out of it.
Possibly. Or life beats you down. Everything's taken away from you, people. Right? Death, whatever. It happens. But it's definitely not something we want to happen to us, because why we work so hard at it. And we search it out and we join in it. And it's why we continue to keep doing these podcasts. Why even we do these memes. Because we're still reaching a community, even through our meme page. In this podcast, we hope we're reaching people. We hope someone gets something out of it. Usually we joke around and we laugh a lot. But I find it shows, I think, our growth. We're starting to go beyond just talking about our day and making jokes.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
starting to become apparent to me, and probably people that are, let's say someone actually watches all of them. If you do, I love you.
You say you don't rat yourself out, but I just picked up on that. It's because you do it very, very subtly, like subtle. You say things like, "Yeah, I'm processing my emotions through a dark humor." What you're actually doing is telling the world that you're self-aware of that maladaptive behavior and that you're actively working on it.
It's in
You know
some
that.
memes, yeah. Well, and it's in a lot of things. On here, in the memes. Even the meme that you said you only saw after that little episode, right?
So you rat yourself out from a cryptic perspective.
I guess what I do now, I never did before. That's the thing, though. I don't care.
Every
I
day.
don't care how I rat myself out or what you want to call it, whatever term you want to call it. Healing, ratting myself out, processing, whatever. I know
Yeah.
how I used to be, and I'm not that anymore. So whether it's right or wrong, how I'm doing it, I don't know. I just know it's different, and I still get results. I still have breakthroughs. There's things that through therapy mostly, but in these groups and in our community, there's things that no longer hit me like they used to, and it's not time. It's not the fading of time. It's because I've been dealing with stuff. I've been openly talking about stuff. I've been releasing it. It's not my demons that I carry anymore. I spit them into the air. I released them. It's in the ether now. It's not stuck all up beside of me in a ball in my stomach or in my head. It's something I stress all the time. I won't stop saying it. Is I gotta keep talking. I don't care how I do it and what means I use. And what I mean is that we're being more reflective, being more careful, or choosing our topics, or choosing what we want to talk about that are more meaningful to us than just joking around all the time. And attack, like I was an attack dog in the early episodes, right?
Yes. I think yes, but we're growing up.
There's
We're
that too.
definitely
There's that too, obviously. Yeah.
becoming some sort of adults, right?
Damn.
Like our values were always there. Our behaviors were not necessarily aligned. We're getting there. And when I say that I bring the person that I was before addiction, the person that I was in addiction with me, is exactly what I mean. Like the little fuckers that started the podcast in April
Was it
are still
April?
there. I think so,
Okay.
yes. April or May,
I think
whatever.
it was May. I think we started the page in April.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It doesn't really
No,
matter.
no.
Time is a social constraint. And
Why
I'm
do you
not good
tell
with
that to my
remembering
job?
dates. All right. But what I meant is that we're the same person on the podcast. We're the same person all the time. We don't escape ourselves. But what I realize on the podcast is that I am myself, like my true self here, often more than I am just on my own at home.
What do you mean
You know
by
what I mean?
that?
I'm being genuine here, and that's an exercise, like therapeutic exercise to be like if I'm not gonna say something that is true, I'm not gonna talk
Right.
podcast.
Right.
Which brought me a sense of unity with myself, if you will. Because I've been so fractured all my life. Like I always like fractured my relationship. Like when I'm with that friend, I'm that person. When I'm with my mother, I'm that person. You know, all my life. Right now, I'm the same motherfucker anywhere I go. Not all the time, but that's my goal. And I think we're getting there. The level of vulnerability that we add tonight, like we always really raw. here. But tonight we went deeper. And I think it's going to continue in that way. We're not going to say stuff that we shouldn't say. That's not what I mean. What I'm saying is that we don't hold back, or we think we don't hold back. There's some more discovery for us to make about ourselves. We cannot talk about things we don't know yet.
Obviously. Well, we do, but yeah, we have in early episodes, right? But I know
And to your question about being critical, I think we also have much less reason to be bitter about things.
Yeah, and I think that was all part of early recovery. But also, hey, let's face it though, some of that stuff that was bothering me is not in my face anymore. Have since. Now, hear me out on this, and we got to close out. But what I was saying about and grabbing that person that I was and bringing them along with me on my journey in sobriety, some of that me was good that I'm bringing too, but he got left behind as well. And when we talk about solidarity and everything else, and how we're vulnerable and how we're authentic now, part of me was like that before I got all fucked up. Like I said, before relationships and everything else. Remember I told you the story about I was always a leader already at 19, and I already felt the need for solidarity and like I could start a union or whatever. These are not foreign concepts to me, and they started very young, and it's all coming back, which is probably why I'm having so much trouble at my work right now. Is why I'm disassociating so often there, because I feel like it's a lost cause.
Have you tried not to care so much?
Yeah, I know. Seriously, that's what I've been trying to do. It doesn't work, but disassociating seems to work pretty good. Uh, uh, but uh, but just all that to say that it seems to be creeping into, well, not creeping into. I'm relearning, or it's reemerging parts of me that I did like, because I'm letting it fly, letting my freak
Yes.
fly, right? In these podcasts, joining the facilitators, becoming something that I want to be is I want to help people. I want to help. I want people to educate me while I help educate them. If I raise questions and you got answers, good, I want to hear them. If I don't like your answers, I'll tell you. And we'll have an argument or we'll have a discussion about it. Either or. I don't mind either. But
Yeah.
that is part of me that I was afraid, or I'd lost. And in early recovery, I was afraid to embrace. And it's starting to come back.
I agree with you 100%. Wow, what a great chat we just had. We
Two-parter.
could go on. I feel like we could go on for another hour, but we shouldn't.
No, we shouldn't, because we can't keep breaking unless we make 3 episodes. Because
No, but the problem is, I think, Eric, because we haven't done that in a very long time, and that's the real problem.
But
We need to do more of these.
well, there's that. No, but I just think we had a lot to say about what we touched on tonight.
Yes.
I think we both allowed ourselves time to formulate our ideas and our perspective or opinion, however you want to look at it. And I think we both put across exactly what we thought was important to say that we believe. And that is our fucking journey. That is healing. That is something that as addicts we didn't do properly before. Now we do it better.
You know what I'm going to do, Eric? I'm going to edit the part that we need to edit out, but I think I'm going to make a single episode.
I don't see how you can make
Let me tell you why.
Why?
Because we do this for those that need it. And it doesn't matter if somebody listens to 15 minutes of it, of the entire thing. They get what they need out of it. I'm satisfied.
Right. I kind of know what you mean, yeah. And some people do only listen to 15 minutes of stuff.
And that's perfect,
Yep.
right? I really don't care. But some people have listened to the pilot in entirety, and
God love
those
them.
are probably the best feedback I've received. You know, and it's interesting. Our insight today on an episode that is that long is very different than our very immature pilot episode.
Very much.
I haven't tried to anger you, and you haven't gotten angry.
I don't think you could anger me on that anymore. But also, it was personal, though. Don't forget, there was, because of
Yes.
that episode happened at a time when something had just happened in the rooms. Something I already discussed in here.
We came in with our big egos, both of us.
Yes, but someone tried to describe us, or me anyways, us in general, in a fashion that I didn't agree with, which I touched on tonight.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
And you notice I didn't spend much time talking about it because I just didn't want to waste my breath on that person.
I gotta say, resentment is not helpful, and I'm not resentful. It's more like
I'm grateful.
it's more,
Grateful that I had them figured out from the beginning because I didn't waste any time.
and I've told that person that I'm grateful because he changed my perspective on so many things, and I mean that.
Yeah, he took away the pink cloud pretty fast, in the community.
Yeah, but everything happens for a reason.
Well,
This podcast happened in large part because of that.
this is true though, but I have a funny feeling we were going here anyways.
Some things are meant to be.
Don't forget, the things that were making some people uncomfortable were our shares, because we went places that some people didn't want to touch on, which was
I remember that facilitator says, I'm so uncomfortable giving you feedback, you're crying.
And I remember when I brought up therapy, how they didn't want to touch it, or mental health, and they didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. So,
But today in the rooms, we talk about that every day.
more or less, you would know more than me.
And it's not taboo.
Yeah.
Like,
It never should have been.
I'm not saying that we changed and made a revolution of anything. No, but our influence, our presence has an impact.
Well, it has nothing to do with pride, ego, and I don't believe. Yes, it had an impact, if only because we didn't shy away from what we were trying to do, which was heal. So we were healing in real time the best we knew how, and we were using the method in front of us that we had, and it was for our sobriety. And so we used it. That was our vehicle, and we used it, and it seemed to open up some eyes and allow some people to speak.
And if I can help a single person, all my suffering makes sense.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but I'm glad to help a single person.
Because it doesn't make sense on its own.
I don't try to make sense of it. But going forward, I try to do better.
On this, I don't know how many freestyles this is. Probably one.
I fucking
Gonna be
don't
bold like that.
remember.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Thank you for not caring or listening to it. I don't care. But thanks for those that are listening.
Nice. Wow.